Let's get the inside track from Simon Freakley, CEO of AlixPartners, of course, a business that looks at, well, consulting to these sorts of distressed businesses, looking to hold their hands through the process. Simon, from your perspective, where are we in the bankruptcy unfolding out of COVID-19?
Hi, Caroline. Well, look, we've seen some high-profile names, of course, filed during the pandemic. It's been particularly brutal for the retail sector, for hospitality, for travel. But actually, the big names that have filed, the Penners, the Crews, the Hertzes, these are businesses that were struggling with their own transformations even before the pandemic came along. And candidly, what we've seen is that disruptions in industries have now become much more profound in terms of their impact than what's happening in the economic cycle. So interestingly enough, of course, there's been lots of restructuring going on, but much of it has not been in Chapter 11. There's a surplus of money out there that can support operational restructurings, and many businesses have had to reposition themselves, to pivot, to work out how they survive the pandemic, but how they position themselves for the new normal.
Yeah, the disruption is interesting because, I mean, in the past, usually the disruption would be completely from new players, Simon. But we have seen, particularly in the retail space, a lot of, I guess, old line type retailers trying to finally sort of figure out, the e-commerce space and the delivery aspect of that space. Is there a general sense here that the disruption we're seeing now is going to maybe be a little bit, I guess, more evenly distributed with regards to the ultimate beneficiaries?
I don't think so. I mean, disruption is here to stay. And of course, the cycles of disruption are not only more regular and more profound than the economic cycles, they start to work on top of each other. And so the disruptions caused by the availability of technology, and particularly connectivity as people increasingly use their mobile devices to transact, means that the compounding effect of this is that the leadership of companies, the corporations that are agile and move to action quickly, are those that tend to survive and ultimately capitalize on those disruptions. So there'll absolutely be winners and losers in this, but never before has it been more critical to have a clear strategy and to execute it with pace.
Simon, do you see more consolidation so companies can do just that, so they can scale up and gain access to areas in which the disruption may be a little bit, they may be a little more resilient to such disruptions?
I see a couple of things. I certainly see that. I think as people look to really focus on what their core business is, they'll let go businesses that aren't core. So I think there will be an uptake in M&A activity as people look to consolidate and get size and therefore scale. But I also think because of the level of investment that's required in so many industries, take electric vehicles or autonomous driving or the rolling out of the 5G network, that companies will have to partner together because the magnitude of investment required in a new normal is going to be beyond many single companies. So I think partnerships and also consolidation.
It's really interesting about this liability focus that the Republicans in the Senate particularly have had. How much do you think that is hampering business, or not, the case may be? We're looking at Amazon being targeted by the California AG over perhaps its COVID protocols. It really has caused a lot of hand-wringing around this package, this relief package. But when you're speaking to businesses right now, are they worried about liability when it comes to COVID, or are they just worried about keeping their doors open?
I think, honestly, people are focusing on the controllable. I think there is this ambient worry about liability, but I don't think it's real yet for many people. The best leadership teams, the best companies, and our experience, and we're working with these companies every day, most of which, of course, are not anywhere near a formal restructuring. They're viable, they're cash positive, but they're trying to pivot their businesses as quickly as possible. What they're doing is focusing on the controllable. They're trying to make technology work for them rather than against them. They're trying to make sure they retain the trust of their employees and critically their customers. And they're trying to make sure that they're simply not left behind as their competitors pivot more quickly. And so it's controlling the controllable that's so important. I mean, clearly there is a liability worry, but I don't think that's the center of most people's vision at the moment.
And so what type, I mean, when you talk about the leadership necessary, I guess, to pull that off, Simon, I mean, what are we talking about? I mean, I know it gets a little esoteric here, but I mean, there were certain CEOs that have already sort of stood out, who've sort of made their mark in this pandemic as being sort of drivers through this crisis. And then, of course, there are other companies where you kind of wonder what went wrong.
Well, I think that doing it nearly right, but doing it now is at an absolute premium. So a viable strategy executed ruthlessly is always going to triumph over a perfect strategy that's slow to execute. I think authentic leadership is so important, people laying out a strategy and carrying their customers, their broader stakeholders, their employees with them. Arne Sorensen from Marriott, I think, is a standout example of that, a business that's been profoundly disrupted by the pandemic. But clarity and articulation of what the strategy is, and then ruthless execution of that strategy has never been more important.
Ruthless execution. All right, Simon Freakley of AlixPartners, thank you so much for your time today.